All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy C. How's everybody doing? Good. I'm gonna share my screen here so y'all can see my PowerPoint slide. Right. Okay, good. So just before I start, I just want to make sure to thank everyone for supporting MAPS. It's such a great organization. Um, we have been, as part of LifeBridge, we have been supporting this MAPS for our second year now. And such a great organization doing a lot of great things for people with Parkinson's disease. So just want to thank everyone for supporting and hopping on today. All right, so for today, we're going to talk about the science and practice of LSVT big in the treatment of Parkinson's disease. So again, my name is Randy C, and I'm a physical therapist, and I work for LifeBridge Health. So to give everyone a background about myself, I graduated physical therapy in 2007, and I've been working in various settings. I've worked in acute rehab, subacute rehab, long-term care, and outpatient. Right now, I work for three of LifeBridge Health's outpatient rehab clinics. Um, so I work at the Edward A. Meyerberg Center located along Falstaff Road. I also work at Levindale Outpatient, and also the newly built building along Randallstown called the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Center for Aging in the Community. So I'm also LSVT Big certified, and I'm also very proud to be a member of the steering committee of LifeBridge Health's Movement Disorder Program. So this is a really great program of LifeBridge Health where we promote interdisciplinary approach to care for anyone with movement disorder. And so we provide care for everyone from the early stages down to the later stages of Parkinson's disease or any type of movement disorder. So for today, we're going to talk about the advances in science and research and how that has impacted rehabilitation for people with Parkinson's disease. We'll also talk about specifically LSVT, big and loud, and what makes it so effective in treating patients with Parkinson's disease. So before we start, I think it's very important that we just sort of discuss what a typical Parkinson's patient experience. So typically they experience slowness in their movement. They have tremors, muscle rigidity, which makes movement very hard. They have soft voice, which makes communicating very difficult. Some experience impaired cognition, like their memory, their problem solving, and some experience psychological disorders like hallucinations, anxiety, and depression. And I think the last line here, which is commonly not known, but I think is very important, is that most people with Parkinson's disease experience a disconnect between their self-perceived speech and movement and their actual movement. And we'll dive into this a little bit more deeper later on as we go through the slides. So it is a very, very exciting time to be in the rehab world today. Back in the days when you had Parkinson's disease, the standard form of treatment would just be medications and bed rest. But thanks to research and science, we've actually were able to have research to back up the value of exercise in people with Parkinson's disease. And to be more specific, we were able to identify what are the key principles of exercise that makes it so effective in people with Parkinson's disease. And So when you lead this talk, um, look at the principles of what makes working out so effective. And you may choose any form of exercise. As long as you have these key principles, you're in good hands. So also, exercising has demonstrated improvements in brain function. And also, it could help slow down disease progression by controlling the symptoms of people with Parkinson's disease. So for short, exercise is now medicine. So this is the picture I like to call is a triad of therapeutic options for people with Parkinson's disease. So again, on the top left, you'll see the pharmacological treatments, the carbidopa, levodopa, and these are the standard traditional treatments for people with Parkinson's disease. But thanks to advancements in technology and research, there's also now neurosurgery, where people, some go through deep brain stimulation to help control the on and off cycles of people with Parkinson's. And of course, there's a voice and body exercise, which we'll talk more about in detail today. So again, people now with Parkinson's have more options of how they want to address their symptoms. And it's really great because, sometimes people, it's not a one size fits all anymore. So you have options and you can decide what's best for you. So I want to talk about how LSVT started. So this started in 1987. So Mrs. Lee Silverman, she had Parkinson's disease before that time, and her family was actually overheard to say that if we only can hear and understand her. So when the nurses, the doctors heard about this sort of challenged them. Challenged them how we can do more for Mrs. Lee Silverman and their other patients with Parkinson's disease. So this led to the development of the Lee Silverman Center for Parkinson's in Scottsdale, Arizona. And as you can see, LSVT is named after Lee Silverman, and it started off as a voice treatment in 1987 to 1989. So again, LSVT stands for Lee Silverman Voice Treatment. So it started off as a voice protocol, which eventually evolved to a whole body protocol. So this picture just shows you the journey of LSVT from back in 1987 and to now to 2010. It has undergone so much research and so much funding. Like NIH has given over $8 million to research for LSVT. Other known sponsors include Michael J. Fox Foundation. And even till today, research has not stopped. We're continually looking for advancements in science to help back up physical activity in helping people with Parkinson's disease. So the LSVT program, in a nutshell, is a treatment protocol administered in a very, very intensive manner because we are trying to challenge an impaired system. And some of the impairments commonly addressed by LSVT include slowness of movement, muscle rigidity, and softness of voice. So we'll talk about the LSVT loud first. So as you can see in this picture, this is what a typical Parkinson patient look and sound like. As you can see, the brain function is a little bit, is not working as much. The facial expression looks flat, not much on that face. And then on their speech is a very, very soft voice. Their posture, they have slightly rounded shoulders. You can see the lungs and the diaphragm not expanding very much. So what the researchers found after administering the LSVT loud protocol is that patients actually improved not only in their voice, but look at the brain function. The brain function improved. Look at the facial response. There's actually more facial reactions now. So this actually helps with communication. Look at the posture. It has also improved. And the lungs are expanding more than when it first started. So what the scientists found was very, very interesting. They said If you can work on speech, and this has so much ripple effect on the facial expression, on the brain, on the breathing, what else can we do for the whole body? It worked out so well. So this was how the LSVT big came about. So they used the same principles, used in LSVT loud, and then used it to develop LSVT big. So LSVT big is a protocol used to address the limbs, so includes arms, legs, and even the trunk. So what are the fundamentals of LSVT big and loud treatment? So basically, it's very, very much standardized. So, when you come in, there's a protocol prepared for you. It's a research-based protocol, and it's very, very specific. So the target, it emphasizes a bigness of movement. So you'll hear a therapist telling you, you gotta move bigger, take bigger steps, or talk louder for speech. And your therapist will be encouraging you um, to have higher intensity, higher effort whenever you move, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to recalibrate your brain. Recalibrate your brain so that when we train you, when you exercise, we're trying to improve the internal feedback system, which is not working for people with Parkinson's disease. So, so why is the internal feedback system not working for people with Parkinson's disease? So this is where I was talking about earlier about the disconnect between their self-perception of movement and speech and their actual movement. So people with Parkinson's disease, whenever I see them coming into the clinic, they usually they're shuffling or they're talking with a very soft voice. And I'm a PT, so I'll talk more about the gait. So I'll say, Mr. Jones, you're shuffling. Can you try to walk bigger? And a common response I get is, what are you talking about? This is normal, and I'll say, no, 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 try to walk bigger, take bigger steps. And they'll say, I can't move like this. People will think I'm crazy, and as funny as it sounds, it's just very interesting because most of my patients, 95%, don't realize that they're shuffling or they're speaking very softly. And believe it or not, most commonly, it's my patient's spouse or family member that helps me identify some of the problems that their spouse with Parkinson's is experiencing. So again, there's this calibration issue, and they don't know that. So that's a problem. There's a mismatch between their self-perception of output and how they actually perform their movements. So this is the vicious cycle that most Parkinson's patients experience with regards to movement. So because they have an impaired self-perception of their speech and their movement, their internal mechanism in their body is telling them it's okay. They're walking fine, they're speaking okay. So this results to a reduced effort in their movement and speech, resulting to smaller movements. And because, again, they don't find there's anything wrong with their speech, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So this is where a skilled therapist in speech and physical therapy can help correct this impaired system. So what happens as a patient undergoes physical therapy or speech therapy? So the LSVT protocol, again, the therapist will encourage a patient to move with higher intensity, with higher effort. So we're trying to do these because we're trying to recalibrate your internal feedback system. We're trying to reestablish the connections between your brain and your speech and your limbs. So by doing so, we're trying to increase the effort, the amplitude of output of movement or speech. And this results to a bigger movement. So we do the protocol repetitively. And we'll talk more about the details of the program later on. But it's a very repetitive program because, again, we're trying to recalibrate an impaired system. And it's only through repetition that you're able to reestablish these connections again between the brain and the body systems. So a typical LSVT protocol is delivered by a physical therapist and occupational therapist for LSVT big. And if you require speech therapy, it's provided by a speech therapist. And unlike other programs, which are great, like the Rock Steady Boxing, this program is actually provided in a one-on-one intervention. So you come in and it's a 1 hour session. So your therapist is able to work on all your impairments, on your deficits. And later on, we'll talk about how we can customize a treatment so that we can address your own issues. So the program requires the patient to come in 4 days a week for 4 weeks for a total of 16 sessions in a month. Each session is 1 hour long, and every time you leave the clinic, the therapist will give you an assignment to do at home and also homework. So basically, you're never done. So you come in the morning, let's say. Your therapist will tell you when you go home, work on your sit to stands or work on your speech. And we'll give you more things to do because the LSVT protocol is very, very high intensity, and so it requires a lot of repetition. So a typical treatment session will look like this. So we have a daily exercises, which is done in every session, and also whenever you're not in therapy. So this includes the floor to ceiling exercises, side to side trunk rotations, and then we have the standing exercises, the forward stepping, the sideways stepping, the backward stepping. We also have forward rock and reach and sideways rock and reach. So all these daily exercises, it's like a warm up. It encourages you to bend your trunk forward, extend your trunk backwards, rotate your trunk side to side. It even works on your limbs, your fingers, on your head by encouraging neck rotations. It's done in sitting and in standing. So after you do all these daily exercises, you work on the functional component tasks. So this is the part where it becomes more individualized. So during evaluation with your therapist, your therapist will ask you, so what are, name a couple of things that you have a hard time doing right now. So it can be as simple as pulling keys out of the pocket, opening a door, and we'll give you more examples later on. And as soon as you've identified these functional tasks, you work on that every time you're in therapy session and when you're outside. So after that, you work on walking big. So this is the part where your therapist will work on encouraging you to do that heel toe pattern. They will encourage you to swing your arms, rotate your trunk a little bit more. And if you're very high level, your therapist may even make you count in multiples of 5 or challenge you where you're working on your cognition and your mobility. So we call it dual tasking. And after that, after the walking big, we work on hierarchy tasks. So hierarchy tasks are big tasks, such as getting in and out of the bed, playing golf, getting in and out of the car. And so what happens with this hierarchical task is we choose a very complex task and we break it down into five smaller pieces. And what happens is we work on each one, and at the end of a treatment session, we piece them all together so that we're able to help you do something complex easily. So it's very interesting now because more and more people are actually getting diagnosed earlier. So I'm getting tasks that are challenging, that are like, let's say, gardening. I've never had someone who played golf before, but gardening is a typical thing that I encounter. Some of my patients have a hard time even as simple as um, getting in and out of the bed to the bathroom at night. So it sounds easy for some of us, but for people with more complex Parkinson's, this is a very hard task. But we'll talk more about that later on by giving you more examples. So these are examples of the daily exercises. So on the left side, you'll see the floor to ceiling. So, it's a whole body exercise. You can see the arms are up, the fingers are extended. The patient has a big posture. The legs are separated because we're trying to assume a big posture. On the right side, you'll see the side-to-side trunk rotation. So we're trying to loosen up the trunk by having a patient rotate their trunk side to side, and even the head goes with the body, just to help loosen up the neck, making it easier for you to navigate in your day-to-day walking. And then we have the standing exercises. So we have the sideward stepping on the left side. Then on the middle, we have the forward stepping. And then the last one on the right, we have the backward stepping. So again, these are repetitive movements. We're trying to practice weight shifting in different directions, because in real life, you may have to sidestep to reach for something up in the cupboard or on the shelf or on the closet. Or you may have to forward step to open a door, and then you end up you backward step to as you open the door. So again, these are all weight shifting exercises that we do daily in the hopes that we improve your balance. So then we move on to the functional component tasks. So again, this is patient driven. So it could be as simple as rolling on the bed or getting from the floor to standing up. It could be getting in and out of the bed. It could be sit to stand. It could be sitting while reaching for something. It could be standing and reaching for something, walking and reaching, walking and turning, and standing and turning. So these are the things. So whatever we pick, it will be you'll do each one for 5 times, and you'll be doing it in therapy and also when you're home as part of your daily homework. And then we have the daily hierarchical tasks. Again, this is patient driven. So again, this is where it becomes more individualized. So earlier I gave the example of getting from the bed to the bathroom. So for us it's easy if you have no difficulty doing it. But for a patient with a more severe Parkinson's, getting from the bed to the bathroom will involve rolling on the bed. It will involve sitting on the edge of the bed, standing up, walking to the bathroom, doing their dressing and their hygiene, and then putting their clothes back up, walking back to the bedroom, and laying back down. So it's a very, very complex task. Getting in and out of the car. It could be they have to deal with the seat belt, they have to deal with the car door, swinging their legs out of the car and standing up, closing the door, and reverse. So other complex tasks include walking and talking, playing tennis, chores. I get this sometimes. My patients, they have trouble maybe doing laundry or vacuuming the floor, playing golf, hiking, and gardening. So a lot of my patients or people ask me, Randy, how is the LSVT big different from a traditional outpatient physical therapy? So I like to refer to this study done, and this study had 42 subjects. So in this study, a group of people underwent the LSVT big, and another group just did a traditional outpatient physical therapy. Important to note here are the patients who underwent the study were in the beginning to mid stages of Parkinson's disease. So what they did was they looked at the patients 3 months on the first month and third month post-therapy. So as you can see, the black bars, the black columns are patients who underwent the LSVT big, and the gray bars are the ones who underwent traditional physical therapy. So as you can see, both groups actually were able to sustain their gains in gait speed and their bigness of movement. However, people who underwent the LSVT big had significant results, significantly better results than people who underwent traditional PT. So I don't mean to really promote LSVT big, but on the side note, if you can't tolerate LSVT big, um, even people who underwent traditional PT also had gains. So whatever you choose, you have a benefit from doing PT or speech. So for trunk rotation, people who underwent the LSVT big actually were able to sustain their movements much more than people who underwent the traditional PT. So actually on the third month, the traditional PT clients actually had a reduction in their trunk rotation. So this is for trunk rotation while they're walking. So I know I talked about LSVT big and loud for people with Parkinson's disease, but I think it's also important to note that LSVT protocol is not limited to people with Parkinson's disease. So I've used this protocol for people with balance and falling problems in the past, people with brain injury, people with multiple sclerosis, and spinal cord injury. But again, it's all going to depend on the evaluation and the ability of the patient to respond to the cues of the therapist. So it's not for everybody, but we're trying to use a protocol on people who are experiencing other conditions as well. So conclusion for my talk is activity matters. Again, I know I pushed LSVT big a lot, I know, but you know what? Most of my patients, I would say half of them, are not able to tolerate the LSVT protocol because it's too intensive. So you know what? They opt to go for the traditional outpatient physical therapy, which I also provide. And they also have gains. So wherever you are in your stage in your Parkinson's disease, activity matters. And you don't have to do a physical therapy if you've just done it. You can attend the rock study classes, which is very popular, power, which is also very popular. So anything that you like, or even the drums, I think that's also very good. So anything that you find that piques your interest and it motivates you to do it, go for it. Because um, exercise is so good for people with Parkinson's disease. And I think it was also worth noting is if you look at the study earlier, the LSVT big protocol, it worked really well for clients in the early and mid stages of Parkinson's disease. So, sometimes my patients are very, very high level and they don't always see the deficits they have. But, that's actually the best time for you to join a program because, again, you're trying to slow down disease progression by controlling the symptoms. And you may not always know that you're experiencing anything until somebody else tells you. And again, as I said earlier, LSVT big is a useful treatment in improving gait and movement. So before I end this talk, I want to quote Michael J. Fox, who has Parkinson's disease. And, one time he said, "I don't have any choice whether or not I have Parkinson's, but surrounding that non-choice is a million other choices that I can make." So hopefully, all of you who are in this talk gets encouraged that you can do something. When you have Parkinson's disease, it's not the end of it. Is in fact, there's multiple ways on how you can address it now, and hopefully, I've encouraged you to do something about it and not to give up. Because in whatever stage you are in Parkinson's disease, there's always something that you can do. And before I actually head on to the question and answer portion, here is my contact information. You'll see my phone number and then my our fax number in the office. And if you prefer to email me, there's my email address. and my website. All right, so I'm gonna hop on to the question and answer portion now. Thank you so much for listening. So I'm gonna pull up the chat section. All right, so I got a really great question. How to motivate a Parkinson patient? You know, so um, you know, for me, it's all about learning the patient. Um, each person is different, and it's all about finding what piques the interest of my patient. I have a patient who she's in her early retirement. She's very active. She loves to garden. So I pick topics or I pick exercises that are more in line towards her interests. You know, a patient may like music, so I may play some music during the exercises. A patient may like to travel or go outside to eat. So we'll pick some activities like getting in of the car, how to actually open a restaurant door, walking in the restaurant, how to even pull a restaurant seat, you know, and sit down. So it's all about individualization and trying to know who your patient is. And really, you know, not everyone is appropriate for one thing. You know, I have patients who love rock steady boxing because it's exciting. It's a lot of movement. It's a group of people. It's very encouraging. And so, you know, I encourage them to go for it. Some like the individual attention I give them in PT, so they benefit from me. You know, so it all depends, unfortunately. And if they're really having some motivation issues, you may want to actually consult with a neurologist because they may be having some depression symptoms that you may not be aware of. I hope I answered that question well. All right, so I think we have no more questions. Nikki?
Yes, thank you. If anyone would like to answer or have Randy answer some questions, you can either use the chat or unmute yourself. We still have just a few minutes left. This will go until about 2:30 before we switch to the next session.
And you know, if you don't have any questions and you may think of something later on, I think Nikki has the option. You have the option of emailing me later on, and I can always respond to your question privately.
Thank you, Randy. I just have one more thing then. My husband did the Big and Loud program at Good Sam, and he has the booklets and he did it, but he doesn't draw on it anymore. So that was my idea of how to motivate him for the things that will be lasting and that he learned, because he learned how to get in and out of the car, but he's still not doing what he learned. So that was my idea of how can I gently motivate him to try getting in and out of the car the way he learned, or, you know, some of those other things. Right. If you have any ideas, and I'll mute myself.
No, yeah, it's a really good question. And actually most of my patients who when they finish PT, what happens is they do lose motivation in doing their exercises. So that's not a very uncommon experience that my clients have. So what I typically recommend is, if they maybe I would suggest maybe finding a group exercise activity, like maybe the rock steady boxing, or maybe doing the drums exercise. And typically for my clients, I see my clients every between 3 months to 12 months, and I see them frequently because my goal is to keep them motivated. So my role is not just a PT to get them exercising. I find myself in that role where I motivate my patients. So when they come in, I hold them accountable. If I told them to come for PT this week and if they don't come in, I call them up, say, hey, what happened? So I always say, I see I see them regularly, not only to fine tune them, but also to help them get back into the program. But it's so crucial, patients, they could backslide so quickly in a matter of weeks or months. So yeah, good question. So I see that the questions are pouring now. Hold on. So how do you find an LSVT certified therapist near you? So you can go to the LSVT Global website, LSVT Global, GLOBAL. So go to that website, and then you can look for a LSVT certified therapist near you. Yes. So I question here: does Medicare or other insurance usually cover treatments for LSVT, big or loud? Yes, they do. Parkinson's disease is a progressive chronic disease, and Medicare does recognize that. So usually, so actually 100% of the time, whenever my patients come to see me after 6 months or a year, I always see a little bit of regression or a backsliding of their function. So I can always justify the need for PT. Again, it's all about managing the symptoms. It's all about controlling it so that it doesn't become so bad in the end, it becomes hard to correct. So a question here is, my doctor did not even know what RSB was when I began seeing him. Now he is more aware. How can you make your doctor more aware? Sometimes I've actually I would just call your therapist. Well, I don't know, RSB. Do you mean LSVT?
I think she means rock steady boxing.
Oh, okay.
RSB. Yeah.
Rock steady boxing. Actually, the good thing now about my clients in people with Parkinson's is that all of you are empowering yourselves now. With the power of internet and social networking, in person and remotely, my clients in Parkinson's disease are getting more and more knowledgeable on how to combat this disease. And so, you know what? If your doctor doesn't know about it, I would, talk to the doctor about it. It's a really great program. And I've seen many, many patients in the Meyerberg Center thoroughly enjoy the program that they don't want to stop. It's very, very effective. And you can give him brochures online. And then another question here is, could you elaborate on the impact on the voice from LSVT? So I'm not a speech therapist, but I know it's similar to the LSVT big, where your speech therapist will make you do repetitive voicing, repetitive speech, and they'll teach you strategies on how to speak louder. So it's repetitive, it's high intensity, and they actually have a measuring device where they'll measure how loud you talk at the beginning and at the end, so that it becomes more objective. And because again, patients with Parkinson's disease may not always know that they speak softly, but if they see it on the machine, oh, it's only 8 decibels, and now at the end I'm at 90 decibels. So that provides my clients with a more objective feedback. Okay, so all right, I think that is the last question. Yes, and again, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me. Nikki has all the contact information. thank you so much for coming on. I know Ravens is playing right now. I'm not sure if we're winning or not. And also thank you for supporting MAPS and hopping on. It's a great organization. I hope you guys keep supporting it. I have many patients who really benefit from what MAPS is providing for them. So thank you everyone for supporting.
Thank you, Randy.
LSVT something they do for the rest of their life?
Yes, I recommend it for my patients every 6 to 12 months. It's like a regular, it's like an annual visit to your doctor. You know, you always want someone to check in on you, and you want to make sure you keep your skills up. Most of my patients, like I'm not sure earlier someone said they stop getting motivated. So you really want to stay motivated by coming to a therapist or some program. That way they keep their skills intact.
And so they should be doing it at home all the time. Is that right? Even if they're not seeing this therapist?
Yes, it should be done every day. And yes, it should be done. And that should have been clear at the beginning. But again, motivation is a problem with a lot of my patients.
Yeah.
So, you know, we all have a part in encouraging our spouses, our clients, our friends, making sure that they are doing what they can every day.
Perfect.
Randy, if we're interested in doing the LSVT big program, do we contact you to do it directly, or do we contact Meyerberg? Because
You
that's
can
where we would do it.
Right. You can contact me directly, and I can actually, in the chat box, I'll write in my contact information in the office, and you can just you can call me or shoot me an email, and I'll respond back to you within a business day.
Thank you.
And so everyone that's listening, we're going to follow up with all of the speakers' contact info after the presentation. Unfortunately, we're going to have to close this session. That way everyone has time to go to the next session, but we'll make sure you guys get the
There
contact.
is no other session. Oh, is there another session?
Yeah, there's one more session.
Okay, Nikki, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.